And we are joined tonight by HBomb. Harvey Silikovitz, welcome.
Stefan, it's great to be here.
And for everybody tuning in, you must stay till the curtain call. We love surprises at EPS, and we are going to have an HBomb surprise. First, we'll get to know Harvey. For those that have not met him, I feel guilty. I've met you several times in passing. I used to live in New York at the Travel Massive events. You're always in the center of the action, and I'm always the wallflower off to the corner.
Those events are really sprawling, and it can be hard to meet new people there. And I think after a certain number of years, people started gravitating towards just talking to the people they already knew. So it can be daunting meeting new people at those events.
And talk about the Travel Massive organization. New York is certainly one of the most active chapters, at least as the years I was there. Some incredible events. The networking, as you said, people might gravitate towards people they knew, but it did seem a mix of bloggers, of PR professionals, travel industry. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, well, my goals in attending it were always different than a lot of the other people there because I blog, or should I say, did blog since my blog has been on hiatus since February of last year, just as a fun hobby. I'm a full-time lawyer, so I wasn't trying to network in order to land press trips or anything like that. Before the pandemic, I used to say that whenever I wasn't traveling, my next favorite thing was talking about travel with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess at least this opportunity is a chance. This interview is an opportunity to do that. Because we haven't even had any travel massive events in a long time. It's been really tough, not only not being able to travel to other countries, but I haven't even been outside of New York City since early March when I got back from Costa Rica.
And I would think that you're on the more cautious side of travel planning upcoming.
Well, I'm in a country where things have really spiraled out of control, and I'm not going to get political on this broadcast, but I'm just going to say that's the way things are here now in this country, and I would not feel safe going through a U.S. airport or getting on a plane with other Americans, many of whom are not going to keep their masks on during the flight. And it really hurts me to not be traveling because I love it so much, but it's not worth getting COVID, especially if I would end up having to be quarantined in a foreign country, especially one that doesn't have great hospitals.
Well, we've got Abramontes giving a shout out to HBomb. He's been all in on flights, although I guess not shaming the non-mask wearing passengers by his social media channel. So there's we've got your fans tuning in, and we'll hop right into your illustrious hobby. So there's people who do a handstand in every country, scuba dive, marathon. You're the only person I'm aware of that has your particular goal to do in every country, which is?
I've done karaoke in 66 countries. And I try to do it wherever I can. In fact, there's another 8 or 9 countries, I'm not sure the exact number, that I managed to visit without, sadly, performing while in their borders. Before we go any further with this, I just want to say whether to travel at this time, including for Americans, I think it's a very personal choice for everyone, how much risk tolerance they're comfortable with. And I certainly would not cast any aspersions on those people who are choosing to travel at this time. especially frequent travelers who really miss it. But I'm just being really risk averse myself.
Understandable. Karaoke,
So you were saying,
the world tour, the HBomb world tour.
yeah, 6 continents, and I'm sure you can guess which the missing one is. And I've even done karaoke on Easter Island and also all 50 US states and so far 5 Canadian provinces. I was supposed to be up to 7 of those by now in a few more countries before the pandemic intervened and scuttled all my travel plans after early March for the rest of the year.
And what counts? So people have to argue what counts as a visit. So what counts as a karaoke performance for HBomb?
It's interesting you ask this question because this caused some controversy when another person claimed to have been the first person to karaoke in all 50 states. One of the cardinal rules for me is that it actually has to be karaoke, which has a strict definition, and there are websites and there are patents that cover this. You're singing to a pre-recorded backing track. That's what the Japanese entrepreneur Daisuke Inoue, I always mangle his name, but that's what he was credited with inventing in the 1970s. And there's some places that offer what they call live band karaoke, but to me, you're just singing with a band. That doesn't make it karaoke.
Okay.
That existed for decades before Mr. Inoue, well, probably for centuries, at those big parties at places like Schönbrunn Palace. I'm sure people would gather around the harpsichord or whatever they were playing and sing. So in order for it to be karaoke, it has to be a pre-recorded backing track. And this person who claimed to sing in all 50 states before me, one of the states, this individual sang at a place that has what they call church organ karaoke, where you're backed not by a pre-recorded music track, but by a church organ. And that sounds like a really fun night, don't get me wrong, but it ain't karaoke. Now, there may have been another person other than that individual who narrowly beat me to 50 states, according to his Instagram page. And there is an honor system unless someone has admitted in a book they published that one of their states was church organ karaoke. So at worst, I was the second to do all 50 states. But so the most important rule is that it actually has to be karaoke. And I have my own rule that I hold myself to, which is kind of arbitrary, that I can't just take out a machine and like sing in a public square. It has to be at a venue that offers karaoke to patrons, typically a bar or restaurant that has it at a scheduled time, either daily or weekly, sometimes at a bar or restaurant like the one I went to in Nassau, Bahamas, where you can go in any time of day and ask them to do karaoke. So there's no such show at that place. And that was quite an experience singing at like 2 in the afternoon with everybody already wasted. And needless to say, the random person who I asked to film me with my video camera was very, very shaky, and the video did not come out that great.
And I have shared videos in the show notes, so he's got recordings of a number of the HBomb World Tour stops.
Yeah, a lot of the videos have higher production values. Like usually, if I get the KJ or someone on their staff, and KJ is just the lingo for the person who runs the show, the karaoke jockey. Usually they're pretty good at filming the videos, but if you ask a random patron at the bar, you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes they do really great. Sometimes they don't even know which way to hold the camera. Like, I hate it when they do it vertically because that converts very poorly to a YouTube video. As you probably know, you get all the black space on the side.
Okay. And
So,
so KJ, is a KJ somebody you got to make friends with? You got to tip, or they can ruin the performance, or is that just about the recording?
well, first of all, on general principles, I think it's always a good idea to get to know the person who's giving you the chance to live out your dream and sing in a new city, or whether it's in a new state or a new country or a new Canadian province or whatnot, and learn a little bit about their story. And I've become Facebook friends over the years with some people who I met as my KJs from all over the world, from places like Jerusalem. And I think I became Facebook friends with the one in Dubai, I'm not sure, but from several different cities. And from a more self interested standpoint, they don't know me, they don't know my story. And in any country, human beings have human foibles, and sometimes KJs will have a tendency to play favorites, like they'll put people they know up much more, and they might keep you waiting a long time if they don't know who you are. And so I introduce myself, I tell them my story, and schmooze them. Not like because I'm being cynical, because, like I said, I am taking a genuine interest in them, and I do become friends with a lot of them. But also, if I give them a reason to care about me, they're more likely to treat me better and give me a chance to get up sooner and do more songs, and maybe introduce me to other patrons who are regulars. Because meeting not just KJs, but meeting locals in general, for me, is one of the hidden joys of doing karaoke in other countries. When you go to a karaoke bar in some foreign city, you're usually not going to see other Americans there. They don't seek that out when they're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are there are locals. They're just there because they like singing, which also makes for a good icebreaker, subject to language barriers in some places, of course. And it's always fun when, after a song, like, one of the locals comes to my table, maybe offers to buy me a shot, asks, "Where do you come from?" And I know that especially nowadays, a lot of people are not eager to admit that they come from the US. And I don't want to get too political, but I'll just say that for me, saying I'm from New York completely overrides any feelings people might have about me being from the US, because people just get so excited to meet a New Yorker. They've all seen movies and TV shows that are set in the city, and they ask things like, "What's it like living in Manhattan?" And they ask about landmarks here that they've heard about. And at the same time, I can talk to them and learn more things about their city. And in addition, karaoke venues are often a little off the beaten path in terms of where they're located compared to the city center. So I often get the chance to see a part of the area that I otherwise would not have been exposed to.
I was curious about the selection. I lived in China for a decade, and there's all kinds, from family-friendly karaoke places to places where you're, we'll say the karaoke is incidental to what you're getting in the private room. So, how are you handling the selection and safety?
that the safety issue you mentioned, I think, is mainly a concern in certain East Asian countries, and I've heard the stories. They periodically have raids on those establishments that use karaoke as a front to lure people in for other more unsavory activities. Although, even if I'm in an American city, if I'm traveling alone, I always take precautions. I could be at a bar in Chicago or LA and someone could slip a rupee into my drink. You have to be careful. And so I'm always going to keep an eye on my bottle of beer or my glass of wine or whatever I'm drinking. And I'll usually bring it up to the stage with me when I'm singing. As far as choosing places generally, it varies depending on where I am. It's very easy in American cities and Canadian cities where, well, other than maybe Quebec, like English speaking cities in general, where I just get on Google and it's usually not too hard to find out where the venues are. So I can like try to choose a location that might be not too long of an Uber ride from my hotel, what nights and times they offer it, and in America, Yelp reviews, so I can look for red flags, like if a lot of people complain that the KJ repeatedly doesn't give them chances to sing, things like that, then maybe I'll avoid that particular establishment and go to a place where there aren't numerous complaints about that type of unfairness, where I wouldn't have as uphill of a battle when I'm getting to know the KJ. Now, if I'm in a country where English is not the primary language, like China, for example, then I'm going to lean on other resources, starting with the concierge of the hotel I'm staying at, if they have a concierge. That is one of the reasons that I like staying at hotels that have that particular amenity. Like, for example, when I was in Taipei, I was having a lot of trouble finding a place, Googling to locate a venue in which to sing. I go down to the concierge, mentions he knows a karaoke cab driver. Like, within an hour, he has made telephone contact with this karaoke cab driver. Within another hour, I'm being picked up by the driver and his girlfriend, and I'm going for a ride in and singing in the karaoke cab in Taipei, which was one of the more memorable experiences. I've also done karaoke cabs in Las Vegas and DC, and that was because of the assistance of the hotel. Other times I've had success, like going into restaurants and asking younger looking wait staff who look like maybe they would be plugged into the nightlife in their area. And that often does pay off in recommendations that pan out of places where I end up singing.
Is there a U.S. capital of karaoke?
I'm sorry, is there what of karaoke?
A U.S. capital of karaoke, a Nashville of karaoke, so to speak.
I think one of the revelations from having done it in so many places is there are just so many cities in this country, the US, and in many other countries that have great karaoke shows. And it's not so much a matter of what city you're in, but more just finding the right bar or restaurant or other venue to perform in within the city. Sometimes there's a lot of luck involved. There can be a place that has a really packed show most nights of the week or most weeks, but you just happen to show up when they're having an off night. You just never know, and you just really hope that you're going to get a good crowd. And the reason for that is because I'm singing, but it's not just about me. I try to create sort of a dialogue with the audience to make it an interactive experience where they're singing along, get them up on the dance floor, and I feed off that energy. And there's nothing that I hate more than when people are just looking at their phones or sitting at the bar and not even paying attention to the songs. And I'm not just talking about when I'm singing, like, if I see that they're doing that for everybody, then I know it's not going to be a very engaging crowd. And that's disappointing because it's a lot more fun for me when there's sort of an interplay going on between me and the audience.
And that leads to a question about song selection. And I've looked through your performances and had a similar question. He's asking about sometimes you choose songs that have a bit of a local flavor. Others you go with a favorite of yours, like a Barry Manilow tune. So how are you picking which songs to pair with your venues?
It varies. When I was in Moscow back in the USSR, it was an obvious choice, and a lot of Beatles songs tend to be within my range, so that helped. When I went to Egypt, I did Walk Like an Egyptian, and I typically would not do a song by a female group. Usually, it's much easier for a woman to pull off a song that's traditionally performed by a male singer than the opposite in terms of vocal range. But somehow I managed to do it, and if you're familiar with the video from Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles, I even had people in the crowd like doing this gesture, doing this song while they were taking hits from the hookah pipe.
Huh. And let's see, back in the USSR, yeah, you've everybody's I've shared the links, digging through his world tour to see some of the song selections. What are the songs your go-tos that you really fit you and you really love belting out?
Well, if there's not an obvious geographic fit that I think I can pull off vocally, and or if a song that's linked to the region just isn't popular and I don't think the people will know it, or if it's not something that's interesting to me to learn, then I'll just do one of my favorite songs. And among the time tested ones that I've done in a lot of countries, La Bamba is a very upbeat, up tempo song that gets crowds going almost everywhere.
Hmm.
And True by Spandau Ballet is one of my go tos. That's more of a ballad, but I'm very comfortable with it, having done it dozens of times. What is Love by Hadaway is another upbeat song that I like to do when it's a really packed house. So that gets into sometimes my song selection is tied to the crowd. You don't want to do a dance song if there's like 5 people in the bar. And if it's late on a Saturday night and there's like 100 people in the bar, and yes, I do look forward to the time when we'll be able to pack 100 people into a bar safely again, then you don't want to kill the mood by doing a slow song.
Hmm.
So you have to read the crowd and the situation. And Oh Pretty Woman is another of my go-to songs. That was the one that I did in Chisinau, Moldova, which was country number 30, which broke the world record for most countries doing karaoke
Really?
in 2013.
You've doubled the record now.
More than doubled it.
And a follow-up question from the audience. Is there a Madison Square Garden of karaoke, the world's most famous karaoke venue? Perhaps is that Berlin's Bear Pit?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention the Bear Pit, and even had plans to go to Berlin back in July of 2017 to hopefully perform at the Bear Pit, although one of the problems with that is they do the karaoke, I believe, on Saturday afternoons, And given the fact that I'm a full-time worker, like I would only be able to go there for a few days. So if you go there for a weekend or a long weekend and it's bad weather, then it's a waste of the trip, and then you have to wait till your next chance to go back there. But that trip ended up being canceled because the airline made a schedule change that made the trip impossible for me with the days that I had available. So I ended up going to Malta instead, which was the long July 4th weekend of 2017. And Malta got the distinction of becoming country number 50 on my World Karaoke Tour.
Ah.
Germany would not have been a new country. I had sung in Frankfurt in 2012 on my way back from Egypt, in fact.
And so the Bear Pit is the most famous in the world?
I would say so. It's really the only karaoke venue outside of maybe the Cat's Meow, I think it's called, in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, that's famous outside of the city that it's located in.
Mm.
And it's the Bear Pit is this ginormous amphitheater. So the analogy to Madison Square Garden is not completely misplaced. The one concern that I had going into it, and it was going to be a real challenge, is I don't have most of the songs that I do completely memorized for all the times that I've done them, and I depend on visual cues from the monitor, even if it's just looking over every once in a while, just to keep up with the pace of the song and not go to the next line too early or too late. But they don't have the lyrics on video at the Bear Pit, so that was going to be quite a challenge.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking that maybe like many things, Japan may have many wonderful venues, but doesn't necessarily have a particularly famous one for the international audience, or not a famous town. It's just everywhere. Or is there a specific karaoke destination in Japan?
Well, the thing about karaoke in Japan, if you've seen Lost in Translation, you might remember there's a scene where Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson do karaoke in a private room in a local mall. And that's really what karaoke is mostly like, not only in Japan, but in much of East Asia. It's really hard to find a venue where you can perform in front of a public audience in a country like Japan. I was fortunate to find a couple of them when I went to Japan in 2008. One of them was in Narita, the city that one of Tokyo's international airports, as you probably know, is located in. And it's a venue called The Cage. I don't know if it still exists now that it's 12 years later, but at least at the time, you would meet a lot of pilots and flight attendants hanging out there. And yeah, I'm sure it inspires a lot of confidence seeing pilots getting drunk at a karaoke bar.
Hmm.
But it was a place to sing, and I was able to sing on the very day that I arrived in Japan. I had heard about this place from a friend who was a flight attendant, so I specifically arranged to spend my first night in Japan in a hotel in Narita so that I could go to the Cage.
Yeah, okay.
And I found a Western style karaoke bar in Tokyo that was run by a US expat from Brooklyn, of all places. Here I am visiting from Manhattan and I meet a KJ from Brooklyn. But because the locals are all about the private rooms, the only other people in there singing were other Americans and people from Great Britain.
Hmm.
So it was a little disappointing in terms of, like I said, I don't go to karaoke in other countries to meet other Westerners, especially tourists. But it gave me a chance to perform in front of an audience, and that was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And let's talk a little bit about a Facebook post, which I'm going to share, that you wrote January 11th, a very thoughtful, moving post about health challenges that you're encountering. And if you could expand on that, and I encourage everyone to, after this interview, to do take time to read the full post.
Well, there's no easy way to delve into this, but last August, almost a year ago now, at age 49, I was unexpectedly diagnosed with Parkinson's, which, as many of your viewers may or may not know, is a neurodegenerative disease, and there's no cure at this time. Now, I'm in the early stages. I have very few symptoms. The main one is something called dystonia, which causes my left foot to cramp up when I'm walking outdoors. And I started getting Botox injections, which hopefully will help with that. And you can't see it now, but I have a little thumb tremor on and off. But that's about it. Things will eventually progress. Nature of the disease, due to the proactive steps I've been taking, like getting a lot of exercise, changing my diet. My neurologist has told me that I'm doing great, and he thinks I'm going to have a very slow progression. And he also said that people who are diagnosed young, and 49 is considered young onset, tend to have slow progressions of Parkinson's. But it will inevitably progress. There's no getting around that. But, at a certain point, we're all mortal, and you never know what's going to come out of left field. And even before the diagnosis, I always had the mindset, like, have as much fun as I can and do as many enjoyable activities as I can, because you just never know how many chances you're going to get. And you don't know when something unexpected is going to happen. I do believe I have many years left of traveling when the pandemic is over, and I look forward to resuming my travels, hopefully sometime in 2021, assuming it seems safe at that time to me.
We certainly hope for that. And reading through your posts, a lot of what you're talking about sounds like things that we all should be doing in our lifestyle, and maybe things we know we should be doing. Speak about the concept of neuroplasticity.
Well, I'm not a scientist, and this is from memory, but it's basically the idea that certain things like physical exercise can actually help build new brain cells. And in my case, it's compensating for the ones that my disease is slowly destroying. And travel itself is great for neuroplasticity because you're always learning new things when you see new places. And singing is good for Parkinson's because the disease can cause some people to speak more softly. So forcing yourself to belt out songs is actually really good at counteracting that. So basically, all the things that I love doing are actually helpful to me, slowing down the progression and fighting off the symptoms in the short term.
Oh, that's fantastic perspective and great to hear. And I recommend everyone, again, take a careful read of the post, and Harvey sharing his feelings as well as advice that I think is medicine we all should take in our life, and also something we've known ourselves about travel, how beneficial it is to our minds, even if we're overeating sometimes or not having the best of diets.
Well, one of the things I want to stress regarding dietary changes is you never want to be too rigid, because nothing is more inflammatory than stress. And like I mostly avoid things like alcohol and gluten and dairy, but I indulge every once in a while because the psychological benefits of that, like having a drink with friends or maybe over Zoom at this point, especially if it's like red wine, which has antioxidants, which are also beneficial, outweighs the small hit of occasionally having a food that's inflammatory.
Hmm. All right, and let's continue on with travel and your hobbies. You got that diagnosis after a trip to Trivia Nationals in Las Vegas, and I'm fascinated by these different subcultures and activities. What is that experience like?
Well, along with travel and karaoke, one of my passions, I kind of hate the term trivia because that makes it sound like you're just memorizing useless, unimportant facts. And I just like learning as much as I can about the world, about history, geography, architecture, about nature, and about different cultures and the people in the world. And trivia competitions are an opportunity to test myself on the things that I've learned and go up against other people who are really, really good. Trivia Nationals, it's an event that's gone through multiple iterations, and it's sort of a replacement for a similar previous event. And I'm not going to get into all the politics of what happened, but prior to this year, starting in 2011, every summer in Las Vegas, there had been a big trivia confab that drew some of the top trivia players from all over the world, not just the US and Canada, but even Great Britain and a few other countries. And you probably know names from Jeopardy like Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter and James Holzhauer, for
Hmm.
example. And they're among people that I've met at Trivia Nationals over the years.
Oh, okay.
And so you're really going up against the very best. And a lot of those people are at an unbelievable level. But it's an honor to compete against these people who are just so phenomenal at their breadth and depth of knowledge. Like they know everything about everything, and it pushes me to learn more so that I can do better when I go up against them. And this year's Trivia Nationals was going to be in just a few weeks from now. But sadly, like any other large event or convention, it was canceled due to the pandemic. And I hope it will be able to resume in 2021. I've been playing a lot of online stream trivia from friends in the trivia community, many of whom I would have seen in person at this event.
Hmm.
And obviously, it's not the same when you're just like going over your answers with your teammates on Zoom or on Messenger. But at least I've been able to stay in touch with these people. And my friends from the trivia community, just like my friends from the travel community, are really among the most interesting people that you could meet anywhere. And it was right at just a few days after coming home from Trivia Nationals last year that I got diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Hmm.
I had felt for a few weeks that something was a little off and I wasn't sure what. And in some ways, it's a relief to get an answer, but obviously, that's not the kind of answer you would ever hope for.
Hmm.
But everyone, if they're lucky to live long enough, is going to have to deal with some health challenges sooner or later. I had heart surgery in 2015. That was really scary, but I got through that. But
Oh,
that was one of the things that really underscored to me the importance of making the most of the time that you're given, and that life is precious and it shouldn't be squandered.
What a fantastic message. And let's say a year from now, you're back out on the road. Talk about the next year or two of travels that you have in mind.
Well, it's hard to say for sure because one of the unknowns is how quickly different places are going to reopen. And even once people start getting vaccinated, as you know, a lot of places are not welcoming Americans now. And how soon will they do that once Americans start getting vaccinated? Like, will proof of vaccination be enough? There's a lot of unknown. And when will certain countries reopen? A couple months ago, I had really been looking forward to a trip to Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, which was going to include, among other things, the door to hell, which is the unofficial name for the gas crater in the desert in Darvaza, Turkmenistan, that's been on fire literally since 1971. And people I know who've literally been to every country have not been to the door to hell. So I was super looking forward to that, as well as the white city of Ashgabat. And Uzbekistan, I heard really good things about some of the historic cities in that country as well. I don't know as much about Tajikistan, but this was a group tour, so I'm sure they would have had some interesting things lined up. So if they'll be able to offer the tour again, that would be among the first trips that I would want to take when I could safely travel again. And not only because my tour company had confirmed that there are karaoke venues in Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, and I can't believe I'm blanking on the capital because world capitals is usually in Tashkent. And in Dushanbe, Tajikistan, that in those capital cities where we were going to be spending some of our time, there are karaoke venues, and I hope that they're not going to be among the many bars worldwide that are never going to reopen after the pandemic, but I can't worry about that now. Turkmenistan, as you may know, isn't letting anybody in from anywhere. They claim to have 0 cases, just like North Korea, and it's a claim that I'm sure has equal plausibility.
All right, it is time. We promised a survive. We promised a surprise. Are you ready to give us a surprise?
Well, it's kind of an open surprise with at least one or two of the viewers right now, and hopefully this will work. But a couple of my travel friends here in New York, who even live in my neighborhood, were hoping for an HBomb karaoke performance. And hopefully I won't be too rusty. I'm going to go through my pre-singing ritual where I chew on a couple of cough drops, especially after this long interview, lubricate the
I'm
pipes.
gonna put you on full screen and take my exit, and you perform till close.
Full screen, that's a lot of pressure, man.
No, we're very excited. All you. We're having some. Can you hear me? We're having some audio issues. Have you unplugged your headphones? Can't hear you. We had you before fine with the headphones, so something when you unplugged them or any change you made on the computer, we're not able to hear anything from you right now. Let me try. Let's see. I will try again any possible settings. I think your microphone might still be thinking the headphones are plugged in. No, don't have you. Try plugging them in and out, maybe. Something with your microphone setting. No, there might be a volume control on your computer that's still thinking it's plugged in. Worked perfectly in testing, of course. So what we may need to do, Harvey, is I'll kick you out of the, let's see, or try that way. Okay. No, we've totally lost you, and I'm not sure why. Any of the microphone volume turned down? Maybe on your headphones? Is the volume on mute or on the computer? I'm going to kick you out, and if you could use the link to come back in, and hopefully that reboot will solve it. So kick you out. All right, we will get to the performance in a moment. Hopefully that will resolve it. The anticipation builds. Okay, try now, please.
Can you hear me, Stefan?
Okay, I think we've got you.
Wait, let's see if it works without the headphones.
Okay, go ahead. No. So we'll go with the headphone option. Or wait, go ahead now. I'm hearing background noise, so maybe it's working. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go that way.
Good.
All right.
All right, just take a swig of water and then we'll get going. So this microphone is just a prop for verisimilitude. Good evening, everyone. I'm the HBomb. I perform karaoke in 66 countries around the world. And this video is probably going to be viewed in some countries where I haven't appeared physically. And that's exciting to me. And now I'm going to do one of my go-to songs, Oh Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison. Pretty woman, Walking down the street, pretty woman, the kind I'd like to meet, pretty woman. I don't believe you, you mock the truth. No one could look as good as you. Mercy! Pretty woman, won't you pardon me, pretty woman? I couldn't help but see, pretty woman, that you look lovely as can be. Are you lonely just like me? Roar! Pretty woman, stop a while. Pretty woman, talk a while. Pretty woman, give your smile to me. Pretty woman, yeah, yeah, yeah. Pretty woman, look my way. Pretty woman, say you'll stay with me. 'Cause I need you, I'll treat you right. Come with me, baby, be mine tonight. Pretty woman, don't walk on by, pretty woman. Don't make me cry, pretty woman. Don't walk away. Okay, if that's the way, it must be okay. I guess I'll go on home, it's late. There'll be tomorrow night, but wait, what do I see? Is she walking back to me? Yeah, she's walking back to me. Whoa, pretty woman.
We are back. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight, Harvey.
The leg kick that ended the song, I hope that came across, because I was looking at the video and not at this. That's my signature move at the end of a song.
We got the leg kick, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for the performance. Have a good night, everyone.